Matt Murray is back with the Buds and just in time to play his former Ottawa Senators with the Battle of Ontario getting ready to go this weekend. We'll tee it up on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. What's poppin', Dave? How we feeling on a Friday?
Doing pretty good. Getting ready for the weekend. Big one.
Little TGIF, big one for sure. I mean, we got the AFC, NFC championships going on in the NFL. I know you and I will be keenly interested in that. And then Saturday night, though, we got the Battle of Ontario. First little Battle of Ontario of 2025. And it's great because the first time, I think, in a very long time that both teams have gone up against each other in the regular season, or at least this deep into the regular season, where both squads are actually currently in a playoff spot. And that's where the two teams find themselves right now. So it's going to be a great game. We'll get into it in a little bit, but I think we got to start with today's big news in Leafland. It's an off day, so we didn't get to see them skate or practice. They did go to the Easter Seals and skate with the Easter Seals, though, which is always great. But the team did make a roster move. So although the players aren't on the ice, Brad Treliving is making moves. Matt Murray, the Murdog, is back, Dave. Matt Murray recalled from the Toronto Marlies. Dennis Hildeby, after a not-so-great showing last night against Columbus, sent down to the American League. I think this was the right move, a good move. We suspected it could happen yesterday on the podcast. You look at what Murray's done over the course of the last couple of weeks here, and even the whole season in the American League. He's got a 168 goals against average, which is first in the AHL, a 934 save percentage, which is second in the AHL. He's got 3 shutouts on the season, and he's played 15 games doing all that. His last 3 games, Dave, a 23 save shutout, a 32 save shutout, and then last night he allowed 1 goal on 19 shots in a 3-1 win for the Marlies over Bakersfield. Murray's playing well. He's earned a call-up, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely earned a call-up, and, you know, we kind of said it yesterday that with Dennis Hildeby not exactly playing at his A game, the best way for a player to kind of get himself back on track is to do an AHL stint. Like you're not going to be able to improve your game at the NHL level. You're going to get more reps in the AHL. I don't know what the Marlies schedule looks like, because the AHL schedule can be a little weird sometimes, where they're like have no games and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to play 3 in a row. So I'm just checking right now. They have a back-to-back this weekend, so you'll see Hildeby get in on one of those, and they got 3 games next week.
Yeah,
so a good opportunity for him to get in some games and get maybe a little more of a regular rotation, because him playing, I think in this recent tandem of him being up, he's only played like twice.
Yeah,
that's you're not gonna see a
like
goalie really get a rhythm when he's playing twice in a stretch. Right now, I get it. You're not going to give a regular rotation to Dennis Hildeby when you've got Joseph Woll. So, playing 3 games in the month of January doesn't lend too well for a goalie who's still developing, right? So it only made sense. Matt Murray's played well. I know that people thought the last time Matt Murray was in the NHL might have been one of the last times, but it's goalies can have these ups and downs, and it's how they bounce back. That's all that you have to. That's the next thing for goalies: just bounce back and find a way to get back at it.
Just find a way to win games for your team. Find a way to make that one save. Like, there's a good goalie inside Matt Murray. He showed it prior, in the NHL. Won a couple Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh. Now, that was a very long time ago, but he did do it. and he seems to be showing some of that Matt Murray down in the American League. I get it. It's a different league. It's a different beast. Once you get to the NHL, the shots are harder, they're faster, the game is quicker. But ultimately, Matt Murray's going to get a chance to come in and, give this team some valuable minutes from the backup position, at least until Anthony Stolarz gets back. And then I'd imagine, we'll go back to the Woll-Stolarz tandem. But I will say, like, I feel good about Murray being like a third, fourth string goaltender. Like it seems like the Leafs in years past, once they get down to their third, fourth string goalie, there's not a lot of confidence there. It's not a lot of experience. Matt Murray brings a lot of experience, and the way that he's played in the American League should bring some confidence to the crease as well. But we'll see. But this shouldn't be the end of Dennis Hildeby. Like I saw some people, talking about how Hildeby was way too overhyped, calling him, the next. He's the Swedish monster. Like this is exactly what happened with Jonas Gustafsson. He came over Swedish, came over and got kind of thrusted into the limelight to play too much, and he got exposed. And saying that Hildeby's the next Gustafsson 2.0. First of all, if that's the case, Gustafsson played a long time in the NHL. He did get a decent amount of years and games at the NHL level. So I think Hildeby would be okay with a Gustafsson level career. But that being said, the kid's still young. He still has a long way to go, long way to develop. Going down to the American League is not, a shot to him saying that he can't hack it in the NHL. He's just got to go down and tweak some things, get his rebound control under wraps, work on his finding the puck and his positioning, and like you said, you can do that way better in the American League than you can in the NHL. So I think it's a win-win for both, right? I think Matt Murray, he clearly doesn't want to be in the American League, and I think he's played his way out of the AHL, and I think Hildeby is better suited at this point in his career playing in the American Hockey League with the Marlies. So I think this should work out for both, but ultimately it's still Joseph Woll's crease. Woll's going to end up with a bulk of the starts until Anthony Stolarz gets back, and hopefully whoever ends up spelling him from time to time can stop enough pucks and get this team some wins and some points to remain at top of the Eastern Conference. Before I guess we put a bow on the goalie conversation, is there anything else that you wanted to mention about this?
Yeah, I just to go back with what you're talking about with Hildeby. I don't think it's right to give an indictment on a player after just 6 career starts at the NHL.
You would think.
Just my thought. Like, we're not looking at a Justin Pogge 2.0 situation here. Like, let's give the guy a little more time, right? Yeah. And goalies tend to develop late too. I know, like you're talking about a goalie who's come from, Sweden to North America. There are a lot of adjustments that have to be made. It's only his second year in North America.
Right.
Give him maybe take it easy a little bit with the hot takes on Dennis Hildeby's career.
Yeah, there's a long way to go with Dennis Hildeby. I do wonder too, though, and maybe I'm just thinking a little out of left field here, but like Matt Murray, if he plays well enough, like could he develop some trade value? Like, do you think there's some teams around the league that look at Matt Murray and say, hey, he might be better than the backup that we currently have? Like maybe if he plays well, could he become a trade asset for Toronto?
I'm sure teams would definitely call the Leafs if that's the case.
If Matt Murray gets to a point where he's in the NHL long enough where his waiver status runs out and he'd have to go through waivers again, if he plays well enough, there's a good chance he gets claimed. I mean, there's a couple teams out there that desperately need some goaltending, some backup goaltending, and Matt Murray probably would be, an attractive asset at that point if he's playing well. I wonder if he could end up possibly playing his way into becoming trade bait to a team as well, looking for, a second goalie and maybe a third goaltender. That I do also wonder if that has any possibilities of that happening.
I could give you like 3 or 4 teams I would ask. One being Detroit, another one being Philadelphia.
Detroit has like 6 goalies.
and they're all bad. Like they're all not good. So why not add another one to the mix? And
You know,
what's
I've
another?
always said like Tampa Bay needs to upgrade on Jonas Johansson. Matt Murray would be an upgrade on Jonas Johansson, absolutely, as Vasilevsky's backup. That I still don't know why they continue to go to that well. It's been 2 years now, and he's been pretty junk for those 2 years. I think Matt Murray would be an upgrade, but
I
what do
think
I
the
know?
Oilers are also in need of a backup too, from what I've heard.
From Skinner, yeah, they could potentially use another guy to possibly tandem up with him, which Murray has done well in a tandem in the past.
Mhm.
But either way, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this kind of second stint back in the NHL goes. Hopefully, it goes better than the first one. He certainly is playing a whole lot better in the American League since being loaned back down to the AHL. So we'll see what ends up happening with Matt Murray. I'd imagine. Let's take a look at the schedule and see if there's a start that makes sense for Matt Murray. Do we have any back-to-backs coming up anytime soon or anything like that? Like,
I don't think the Leafs have any back-to-backs, actually, but I'm looking
there's some
here.
spread out time. Maybe that game against the Kraken on February 6th.
Like they're gonna go on that,
be,
the road trip through Western Canada. That's
yeah.
usually a good time to throw your goalie in there.
Yeah, get him one of those games. Get him one of those. Yeah. The Maple Leafs only have 5 more games between now and February 22nd. So there's going to be some much needed break and rest for the Maple Leafs as we head into 6 games, including tonight's. 6 games, or including Saturday nights, rather, from now until February 22nd. So, like, basically a full calendar month. The Maple Leafs only have 6 games to go. So not a whole lot of, I guess, opportunity for Matt Murray. And hopefully, Anthony Stolarz is ready to go once we get out of this, out of the Four Nations Cup break on the 22nd when they are hosting the Hurricanes. Maybe that's when Stolarz is back and ready to go. But we'll see. I'd imagine Matt Murray will get at least 1 or 2 starts while he's up here. We'll see when that occurs. I don't expect it to be Saturday. I would think that Joseph Woll will get the start after getting the night off against Columbus yesterday. All right. Let's take a break. We'll come back and let's get into Saturday night's game. Battle of Ontario, Leafs, Sens, playoff implications on the line. Should be a good battle for sure. So we'll tee up the game on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories, I went to a Jays game last night. The energy was awesome. There was excitement. I got tickets 30 minutes before first pitch for dirt cheap right behind the catcher. They were great seats. And now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. The feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't even have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to a Leaf game using the Gametime app, and with Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals. You could even see the view from my seat right before I bought it. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise hidden fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast with Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. I was on the Locked On NHL podcast a couple of days ago, Dave, with our boy Ross Levitan, the host of the Locked On Senators podcast. And I'm sure that those boys, Brandon and Pilsy, will be talking smack on today's episode of Locked On Sens, because we got the Battle of Ontario ensuing tomorrow, the first Battle of Ontario of 2025. And it's going to be meaningful hockey. Like, when's the last time the Maple Leafs and Senators have both been in a playoff spot at the time of playing each other this late into the season? I can't think of a time. It's honestly been forever. It feels like.
Yeah, I'm having. It's more so the Sens than the Leafs, right? Like I know when the Leafs were always in a playoff position, not so much the Senators, and I don't think, not even like the lockout shortened year. I don't think the Senators made the playoffs that year either. But they were like,
they haven't made the playoffs since 2017, and the Leafs. That was probably it. 2017, I think, was probably the last time that these two have played each other well, both in a playoff spot. So that's a while, man. That's like 7-8 years since these two teams have played.
It's funny you say that, and then you're just like, dude, that was 7-8 years ago. I'm like, oh wow.
Like it's crazy, and because we felt that last weekend in Montreal, where it's like this is meaningful, original six Montreal Toronto rivalry hockey, and again, this is meaningful Battle of Ontario hockey. And let's pull back to when we did our predictions segment at the very beginning of the season. My bold prediction was what, Dave? Do you recall?
Both the Leafs and Sens would go against each other in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, that round one, we would have Leafs, Sens round one. Yes. And as of now, it would not be that because the Sens are in the second wild card spot as of right now. And technically, we are recording this before the Sens play tonight. They play Boston. So they could jump. And by the time the puck drops, it actually could be a Leafs and Sens battle. But, we could see this. It is very conceivable. Like Toronto, they're 5 points up on Florida right now for their for the divisional spot. If they hold on to it and the Sens end up with one of those wild card spots, like there's a good chance that we could actually see this come through. So tonight or Saturday night is going to be a little taste of maybe what's to come. I will say this though, like Toronto's struggled against Ottawa of late. They've lost 3 in a row here to the Ottawa Senators, including losing 3-0 earlier this season. Like the Leafs do need to start picking it up when they play Ottawa. Like we talked about that the other night against Columbus. They haven't played Columbus very well, and they laid an egg again the other night. This is a Battle of Ontario and an important 2 points on the line. Got to be ready to play. Got to be ready.
Yeah, the Sens are a team that when they go up against Leaf, they try to get the jump on them. I mean, you look at the last time they played against Toronto, they were all over them. The Leafs had a hard time with Ottawa's speed, and it was apparent that it was just not going to be the Leafs' night against Ottawa in that one. And so, the Leafs generally, when they score the first goal of the game, are usually in a pretty good spot, right?
Remember back in that game, actually, the Sens scored like the first minute to like really silence the crowd in Toronto. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. And then they end up winning the game 3-0. Toronto didn't find the back of the net. Linus Ullmark ended up recording the shutout there against the Maple Leafs. But Josh Norris scored 41 seconds into the game to start things off for Ottawa on the right foot. Josh Norris won't be there tonight. He's injured, and so he won't be able to, get the party started. But it is imperative for Toronto to start the game off right. Don't let Ottawa, set the tone early with their speed and their peskiness. They've got to be ready to kind of impose their will and, lean on them. Show that they're the better team. They're the more veteran team. They're the older team. They've got more skill too, to be quite honest with you. Toronto's certainly, I think the start's going to be imperative for this Maple Leafs team going into Ottawa tomorrow night.
Yeah, especially when you're playing in Ottawa, it's going to be a raucous crowd. It's going to be, what do you think the split's going to be?
Oh, it'll be a home crowd. What do you mean? It's going to be a home crowd for the Maple Leafs. Absolutely. 75-25 Leaf crowd for sure. But it'll be real Leaf fans in the building. That's the difference. So it'll be ruckus, but it'll be ruckus for Toronto. Get them rocking early.
I'm sure you heard Austin Matthews' comments after the last game.
Yeah, we didn't really touch on those because we didn't really see the comments prior because we started recording like right away, so we didn't get to see all of the post game comments. But why don't you quickly fill in the viewers and listeners as to what he had to say in reference to that?
Well, essentially after the Reeves, like, look, a fight brings out a lot of energy, right? That's what usually you see why fights happen is because players are trying to bring a little energy, get the team going. And so Matthews was asked about the Ryan Reeves fight. You love to see that. I would have liked a little more energy from the crowd after that. I thought it was a little quiet tonight, especially after two guys like that go at it. So like, he's not wrong, right? Like that's been the MO of this crowd is they're not exactly, we haven't seen that juice from them all the time. And it's, I hear some people, they got to give them something to cheer about. You had probably one of the biggest fights of the season, and that didn't get the crowd going to the level that they needed to. Like,
I know.
So
I know.
I don't want to hear that excuse right now with the suits. No, this was, you had a great tilt, and it didn't really, like, the Leafs played a little better when the tilt happened, but I didn't see it from the crowd.
No, but the crowd in Ottawa, the Toronto Leafs, like Leafs Nation traveling out to Ottawa, they will get on their feet if we see some sort of tilt go down between these guys. I mean, Brady Tkachuk's good for a fight. He doesn't turn much down. Maybe we see Tkachuk and Domi go at it. That'd be nice. A little Tkachuk Domi action. I could see that fight. I could see it. Do you see Tkachuk? Who did he pop the other night? Igor Shesterkin. Yeah, gave Shesterkin a little pop. That's fun. Maybe Joseph Wall get pissed off and we'll see something go down.
Since fans might not like me saying this, I always talk about it with like we always send. I have a group text, James. Sometimes we send like all these Brady Tkachuks, like when you get into this like shenanigans, and it's always when the Senators are down big. It's almost like when the Senators are losing pretty good, here comes Brady Tkachuk doing something that's going to antagonize the other team.
It makes sense, though. Like, when you're winning big, you don't, like, he's trying to fire up his team and get the team back into it, right? With his antics. Like, that's what a captain does. And that's what I actually appreciate about Brady Tkachuk and that aspect. And he knows when to toe the line when his team's up like 3-1 and he doesn't want to give the opposition any energy. So I actually think that's smart. When he picks and chooses where he's going to be Brady Tkachuk. So I actually kind of appreciate that. A guy who knows, how to toe the line pretty well. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll look at the projected lineups. Toronto's lineup could look a wee bit different with Matthew Knies potentially set to miss after missing out, leaving the game on Wednesday. We're not sure his status. There was no practice today, so we're not sure if he's going to play or not. But we will we'll give you our lineup projection on the other side along with the Ottawa Senators. So that's coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps everything exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today to get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, David Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, bringing you brand new episodes of the podcast, which is free and available wherever you get a podcast for you on-the-go listeners audio-wise. And you can also find us on YouTube as well. Leafs and Sens, Battle of Ontario ignites tomorrow night. And why don't we take a look at what the lineups could look like? Let's start in Toronto. We kind of have to make a projection, and this is pretty much maybe what I would do if I had the lineup card. But if Matthew Knies misses the game, there's no John Tavares, no Matthew Knies, no Max Pacioretty potentially, or no, he won't because he's placed on IR, so no Pacioretty as well. The Leafs might have to do a couple of different things with the lineup, and here's what I would do. Here's what I project the lineup could look like for tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators. So I'm moving Max Domi up to the top line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I think Bobby McMahon, Holmberg, and Nylander stick together as a line. Connor Dewar, I believe, will check back into the lineup, and he'll skate on the third line with Minton and Nick Robertson. And then Steven Lorentz, David Kampf, and Ryan Reeves as that fourth line. Do you believe, do you have any I don't know, qualms with my lineup projection? Would you do anything differently, Dave?
Only thing I would potentially do different, it's not even a big thing. I would just flip Lorentz and Dewar because we've seen it happen before.
Right.
I think Lorentz also gives a little more offensive upside than Dewar does, and is
I don't know. I think they have kind of similar. Like didn't Dewar score like 12 goals last year?
Yeah, but he hasn't scored. Like Lorentz is at least putting in the
played. Hasn't played
well,
enough.
that too. Like I just think that like Lorentz also I think he's the better defensive player too. You got Minton, a little bit inexperienced. Robertson is not exactly. He's not bad defensively. Like Robertson's giving an effort, but it's not you. I think you want a little more reliability there. Domi, I would love Domi up there, especially because now he's not playing at center.
Yeah.
So like that makes the most sense. But I do wonder if they just put McMahon up there. Like it just seems like when Knies isn't available, McMahon's the default to go there. But I don't hate that idea of they got to get Domi going. What better way than to put him up on that top line?
Yeah, that was kind of my reasoning there. Like that's a way to get him going. And last year you saw he had some magic with Austin Matthews when Matthews and Nylander were on a line later in the year. They showed a lot of magic together. And then him and Marner obviously have a lot of magic from back in the day, their junior days with the London Knights. So they still have that chemistry that they pop off from time to time. So we'll see what Coach Berube ends up going with. I would imagine Joseph Woll will get the start as well with him getting the night off the other day. So Matt Murray probably set to sit the pine in his first game up with the Maple Leafs. All right, let's take a look at what the Senators lineup might look like. Our projected lineup for the Ottawa Senators. So you got Nick Cousins, Tim Stützle, and Drake Batherson, Tkachuk, Pinto, and Giroux, Ridley Gregg, Ostapchuk, and David Perron, and then Matthew Highmore, Adam Gaudette, and Michael Amadio as the fourth line defensively. Sanderson and Zub, Shabbat and Jensen, Clevin and Monty Paolo, and then Levi Marilainen and Anton Forsberg, the goaltenders. Marilainen, I would expect to get the start. And then let's take a look at our locked on player to watch for the Ottawa Senators. And we're taking a look at Tim Stützle. 15 goals, 45 points, 78 hits, which actually kind of surprised me when I saw that number for Timmy Superstar, as they call him out in Ottawa. We like to call him Timmy Crybaby here in Toronto. But yeah, Tim Stützle, great player. He really is. He's a tremendously gifted, talented player for the Ottawa Senators. He'll be the player to watch. I think he scored too in that November outing against Toronto.
And he's always been good against Toronto. Career wise,
21 points in 23 games.
Like he's always a player that I always hated Leafs going up against. He just gives them a hard time. He's a good player, right? Like he's emerged. Like I know that initially when he was drafted, I don't think many viewed him as a center on this team, right? I thought he was going to be a winger, but he's really taken the lead and playing center on this team. And yeah, there was a thought that maybe he would be like the first next player to get to 100 points. I don't know if he's going to get it this year. I think he'll get close to it, but this is a guy who can get to 90 pretty easily.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure he can. Did he hit 90 a couple of years ago?
I believe he did. Like
you got close at least. Yeah, he hit 90, 22-23, 78 games, 39 goals, 90 points. And it dropped off a little last year, 70 points in 75 games, got 45 and 47 this year. He's only 3 goals away from tying last year's total goal total. He had a bit of a down year last season, but he's rebounding certainly for this team this year.
Yeah, and they made that push to get him that long-term deal.
Yeah.
I think it was after that 90-point year that they gave him that deal. And so, like they bet big on him, and I think he's delivered, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
He's not one of the many Senators prospects who has not delivered on their deals. Looking at you, Colin White. I'm looking at you, Thomas Chabot. I'm looking at you. There's another player I can't quite recall. Josh Norris hasn't really lived up to his deal either because of the injury. Right? So there's a lot of players there in Ottawa that they decided to pay that have not lived up to their end of the bargain. I think that's a big difference as to why Toronto's rebuild has gone. I mean, postseason success aside, it's gone very well. Ottawa, there's been some rough waters over the last 10 years with their rebuild. And it's because, a lot of guys just have not really been able to play to the standard, right? Bobby Ryan got that big contract and then didn't play to his standard. Happens a lot here in Ottawa. Luckily, I guess for Toronto, although they pay players big, at least they show up and play well, right? The Marners, the Matthews, the Nylanders, the Tavarises, they're earning their money, right? It's tough to have that many guys making that much money, but at least they are producing regular season wise. The playoffs, and that's a whole different story, but at least Toronto making the playoffs, unlike those bums in Ottawa. Anyway, before we get ourselves in trouble here, that was a little shot to our boy Pilsy and Ross because I know they're throwing shade at Toronto. I know it. I get. So we were doing the Locked On NHL show the other day. So did you see that the Sharks blew a 5-1 lead the other day to Nashville, which is incredibly hard to do. Nashville literally 30th in the league in scoring.
And Nashville
you give up a 5-1 lead to that team. Anyways, so he comes on to the Locked On NHL show. He's talking about, he's like, could you imagine giving up a 5-1 lead? And of course he's.
Oh, I know. Yeah. You don't even need to explain it to me. Leafs fans already know.
Yeah. Leaf fans already know. And yeah, we're well aware how that works.
Sens want to make sure we're well aware too. They do.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And he brings it up all the time. And I just keep saying
that's their Stanley Cup, man. That's their Stanley Cup.
That's what I say. He's like, yeah, you say that every time we beat you. He's like, anytime the Sens win, you say it's a Stanley Cup. And then how many banners do you think they got in the building? I'm like, no playoffs, buddy.
You can't get a banner if you don't make the playoffs, man.
That's all you play for. That's all you play for at this point. Although now they're playing for something. They're a good team. It seems like they're gonna.
This year they have a chance to not blow it. They could still blow it.
I'm not talking about the lead. I'm saying the Sens actually may play and get into the playoffs this year. So at least that could be something to celebrate. Because the last 7 years, the biggest celebrations are wins against Toronto. That's their biggest accomplishment. I bet you that's their biggest accomplishment in the last 6-7 years. You ask any Sens, they're like, oh, that 5-1 comeback over the Leafs. Oh, that was glorious. That's probably it. That's all we got. At least we got the win against Tampa, right? The overtime victory, right? You got John Tavares, the captain, Johnny Tirana, sending the Leafs through to the second round. Boy, what a day that was. What a day. Sheldon Keefe almost tore an ACL. That's a much better memory.
I got a video
regular season comeback overtime win. I'll take my memory over Sens memories. But anyways, this didn't have to turn into a poop slinging contest between the Leafs and Sens, but Locked On Sens boys bring it out of us every time, Dave. The text chat is going to be flying between us four in our little group chat during the game. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully Leafs Nation's excited for it. I know you are as well. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You could subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday to recap the weekend's festivities. Enjoy the game. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.